Hi, I'm Kip Owen.
And I'm Ryan T. Husk, and this is the Creation Entertainment Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to jump into part 2 of the William Shatner interview with Adam Malin. This is going to be covering Captain Kirk's incredible legacy.
And on the Pop Culture Cinema Squad, we're going to do a deep dive into the Netflix series Three Body Problem from the Game of Thrones creators D.B. Weiss and David Benioff.
And then, in the Creation Looks Back segment, Adam Malin and Gary Berman will reminisce about their early comic book convention days and the legendary team of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
And then Ryan and I are going to give you the dish on the latest Creation Entertainment news, including the big guest announcement for STLV Trek to Vegas convention this August. Stay tuned.
You have a couple of other things that have been passions in your life that I've been very fortunate to experience firsthand. First of all, your love of the equestrian arts and your wonderful Hollywood Charity Horse Show, which is going on in about its 500th year at this point.
It's the 36th maybe year. We've raised millions of dollars for children's and veterans charities. 35 years, about $500,000 we raised during the Hollywood Charity Horse Show, which is on June 1st. Horseshow.org if you want to make a contribution, and every penny, it's just me and whoever is assisting me, in this case Kathleen Hayes, has been running it for so many years.
Amazingly.
And neither one of us gets paid, and we have spectacular entertainment, wonderful dinner, and limited seating. So
your dinners are the dinners are wonderful when all of the big donors get to go to this dinner, and you'll have people like Brad Paisley or Willie Nelson.
Yeah, and we had Elvis Presley last year. This year we're having Judy Garland, and Elvis is coming back, and two other great male entertainers whose names I forgot.
One year you had Willie Nelson was your guest, and you had me bring something to him in his green room.
What was that?
I think it was like food or something. It was like some food for the band.
Yeah.
He said, "So Adam, take this to Willie in the green room. They're hungry," or something like that. So
what did you get? What did we get?
It's something that
they were making.
So I go to the green room, I knock on the door, and I hear yes, in that Willie twang, and I said, "I'm Mr. Nelson. I have some food for you," and he says, "Come on in." So I open up the door, and a giant cloud of pot smoke comes.
How did you know it was pot smoke, Mr.?
Well, I don't smoke it, but I've smelled it a billion times. So yeah. And this is before it was legal in LA. But there were a lot of great experiences that I had personally at that show. But I've always been so impressed by the fervor by which you and Kathleen have worked. People don't know how tirelessly for so many years you've worked with Wells Fargo and everybody in the team.
Well, we just to try to get the sponsors, and we can't just depend on ticket sales. So
it's been amazing. But you have been a horseman all your life. Now, are you still riding?
I certainly am. I've got 2 horses that are competition horses that I'll ride like this week or next week.
Are these standard breds or?
No, these are quarter horses. There's a whole quarter horse segment of my life, breeding and babies and training, and then there's the saddlebreds, which I have in Lexington, Kentucky, and standard breds, the trotting horses. So I'm up to my neck in horses.
Another thing that you have pursued for quite a bit of your life is different musical concepts. And you've had numerous albums, including one with my own producer, Billy Sherwood,
That's right.
which was
And
incredible.
and we've written the team of Rob Chernow and I have written songs, about 14 or 15 of them now, to start to make a new album with Brad Paisley. That's going to go on.
Ah,
I'll record
fantastic.
that in Nashville maybe by the end of this month.
He's an
End of,
incredible talent.
yeah,
You also did a project with Ben Folds that was amazing.
yeah,
You and you did a ballet project that came out of that recording, Gonzo Ballet.
that's right. And I did a blues album that was #1, and I did a Christmas album that was #1. I've got about 7 or 8 albums out there, but this next one is going to be really spectacular. I'm loving the songs that we've written, the lyrics to which, and then we're going to get Brad to put the music to it.
Well, with such a full career and with no sign of
Let
slowing
me let me
down.
let me let me tell you one other thing that I'm doing
Yeah.
that is spectacular, and that is there's all kinds of sound. My phone, my dogs. Um, I went to the Antarctic a month ago on a voyage
Antarctica?
in Antarctica, and was responsible for some of the entertainment as well as Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now, I had done Neil's podcast a few times, and we become kind of buddies. We really liked each other, but he's on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast. So, uh, minor communication, except now I'm spending 2 weeks with him on a ship, and we get to know each other, and and then in the evening, he and I, 3 or 4 times, got up and entertained, question, answer, that kind of thing. So when I came home, I started to compose a speech, a talk, essentially, about the relationship of exploration between the people who went to discover the South Pole and the difficulties they had, and modern day exploration like going to Mars. And I contacted Neil and asked him if he'd be interested in doing a stage version of him and I discoursing on the magic of exploration, whether it was literal on the snow with dogs and things, or with the primitive rockets we have now, and then the years to come, how much more sophisticated will it be, what Mars would be like, what the South Pole was like, what invests people to make those kind of weird, who wants to go to Mars? 6, 8 months to there, 6, 8 months living there, 6, 8 months coming back, and all the I mean, who would want to? There are people lined up who want to go to Mars, and they know the potential problem, and yet they want to go based on, I want to go someplace where nobody's been. I want the idea of exploration. I want the sensation, and that's a stage thing that that we have plans to do, Neil and I. June, July, we're looking at Seattle and the theater in the Seattle area to do a performance Thursday night and Friday afternoon and Friday night. 3 performances in the Seattle area of Neil deGrasse Tyson and me on stage holding forth on exploration and the magic.
It sounds wonderful, and I feel like you've been exploring. I'm not going to use the cliche, the final frontier, but you have been exploring so many things in your life. You're a Renaissance man, and I just wonder if you can put a footnote on your life, your career. What do you think your legacy is? Could you even put it into words?
Yeah, I think he didn't die.
Well, that much we know, but
I don't know. There's no such thing as legacy, Adam. No such thing as legacy. The way the world, this planet works, and all of the universe works is entropy. Things change, chaos. and we're seeing a great deal of it now. The things change immediately. As immediate as something is born and is there, it begins to change. It erodes, and our lives, our little brief, useless, senseless lives, or maybe there's a whole act to follow. Nobody knows. But there's no legacy. You can leave a statue, it's torn down. You can leave a stone memory thing, it wears away. No such thing as legacy. The legacy that we all leave is our good deeds that we perform in our lifetime. They resound, they reverberate for the rest of time. You help some old lady across the street, that action and that lady and her actions after that, and your viewing of that action, your lasts forever. It'll affect other people, and it reverberates for the end of time. That's your legacy.
It's a great legacy, and even what you've given to me and to the people that have come to our events for all these years, all the love and devotion that you've given to us and our audiences.
I love coming to your events. Your events are made for the fans, and I come to your events with that in mind.
Well, it's been a love affair.
Mine with you too. You're a hell of a guy.
So, and we're going to see you at, I think, 3 dates this year, which is not meant to be a plug, but
tell me, we're going to be in Las Vegas. We're going to be in Chicago. What's the third one?
We'll be in New Jersey.
In New Jersey.
Yeah.
Great.
New York area. Yeah.
Looking forward to all, and looking forward to saying hello and greeting the fans that come, and they're our fans, yours and mine and everybody else's.
You've got like a fifth generation now of Star Trek fans coming. They just keep coming year after year, So
yeah, it's amazing.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
And sweetheart, take care.
Love you very much.
Love you too. Take care.
All right. Be good.
Hello again. Welcome to Creation Entertainment's Pop Culture Cinema Squad. I'm joined here by my esteemed colleague, Kit Bowen. Hi, Kit. Good to see you again.
You too.
And today we're going to wrap our heads around three-body problem.
Wrapping is a key point there.
Epic piece of work from the guys that gave us Game of Thrones. That's David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, joined by filmmaker Alexander Wu, and based upon a series of groundbreaking Hugo-winning novels by Liu Cixin. All right, let me see if I can set this up for us. Season 1 only encompasses the first part of the first book in the series. And the story sets up with the Chinese Cultural Revolution, where a young physicist, Yi Wenji, played by Star Trek's own Rosalind Chow, witnesses her father's brutal death and is later recruited to a secret military base dedicated to contacting extraterrestrial life. And due to her disillusionment with humanity, she actually reaches out and sends a signal to an alien civilization, the Santee, from a world in a chaotic solar system with 3 suns. We're going to talk a little bit about the three-body problem in a few minutes, but let me again just set this up. Her contact to the Santee sets in motion a chain that leads to the eventual arrival in 400 years of this alien race. And in the present day, a group of Oxford scientists, the Oxford Five, become entangled in the mystery surrounding the strange occurrences and suicides that are occurring as a result of this impending alien invasion. And the truth, which is gleaned partly from the results of a virtual reality game that is being enacted that reveals the Santee's homeworld's harsh environment and their motivations, while also facing the dilemma of preparing humanity for an inevitable invasion.
Well, the one thing you did forget to talk about is that this young scientist who's working for this SETI type organization in China. She gets a message from an alien of some kind saying, "Do not contact us. This is a warning. Do not contact us because it's going to be bad if you do." And she does it anyway.
Well, this also gets into the dark forest theory, which is in the novels themselves, which is that if you are contacted by an alien race, you have several choices. Your first choice is to ignore them, which is probably the wisest thing. Because if they have the technology to reach you and contact you, they very possibly could outclass you and come and destroy you.
That's true.
Something that'll show up kind of with the body of a crab and the head of a social worker. So we don't want that.
And they move very fast, or they can't hear you, but they can smell you, or they can't smell you, but they can hear you, or they can't see you.
Or you can choose to contact them, but if you do so, it's very possible that since you have the technology to reach them, they will determine that you're a threat. And based upon the fact that you're a threat, they will preemptively try and destroy you.
Right.
Or in the third case scenario, when you're contacted by them, you may unilaterally decide to try and destroy them. This is the dark forest theory of the universe. It's dog eat dog, alien dog eat dog. Anyway, this group of scientists, which includes Jin Chang, Saul Durand, and Will Downing, become central to the story as they try to glean and understand what this alien threat is. Let's talk a little bit about the three-body problem.
Okay.
Kit, you're a physics expert, so
sure
why
am.
don't you break this down for us?
I'm not. That's the thing about this show. I was absolutely riveted by it for most of it. There's parts of it that goes right over my head.
Well, you'd have to be Sir Isaac Newton, but he actually first proposed that three bodies interact gravitationally in a way that is chaotic and unpredictable.
Okay.
So if your world has even two suns,
right,
you can kind of know when the weather conditions around your world are going to be okay.
Okay.
But if there are three suns interacting with each other, they create a series of gravitational interactions that are not predictable.
Right.
They are chaotic. They create chaos.
Right.
And for those that live in a three-body system, it becomes a three-body problem because you never know when your planet is going to be habitable or when you're going to get fried to death by too much sun. You can't predict it. And so those that have read the novel, and that's, I count that as some of you out there, know that the Santee have adopted a very unique method of adapting to periods of intense solar radiation by desiccating their bodies. This is not, spoiler here, not revealed in the first season.
Because we haven't even actually seen the aliens yet.
Yeah, so. But they can desiccate their bodies to kind of hibernate during these chaotic periods. But the Santee figure, desiccation, it's such a drag. You have to be there all dried and shriveled up, for millennia. Who wants to be all dried up? So they figure instead, you know what? Before the next chaotic period arrives, and it could arrive at any time, let's get the hell out of here and let's find an alien world that's inhabitable. That sets up them sending out that alien signal, which you mentioned, that Rosalind Cho intercepts and decides.
Well, the younger, the actress playing her as a younger character.
Yeah, she just decides that she is going to, because many of her colleagues think it's a mistake, but she is going to contact them.
Even though she got the warning. She's
and that sets the chain into motion. Now, the Santee have this virtual reality game. These magic, VR headpieces show up, which are really cool. So let's talk a little bit about their VR game, which is so incredible. There's this VR headpiece, which looks very futuristic. Now, I've always felt that these VR headpieces are a bit unwieldy, to say the least. I got one of these Oculus units, and I think practically weighs my head down.
You actually have one?
I have one. It was a gift from Gary.
Interesting.
And I do use it, and it is intense. But anyway, this one, which was designed by the Santee, not exactly sure how they got it to Earth, since they do not travel faster than light. But anyway, they left it, and people have been using it. And what it does is it manipulates human minds, and it also gives the Santee an idea of how sophisticated we are based on the levels of the game
Right.
that we're able to sort of achieve and succeed at.
Right.
So they determined that Earth is going to be a place that they can come and colonize.
Right.
So they start getting into a dialogue with a gentleman, Mike Evans, played by the great Jonathan Pryce.
Yes.
And he starts having a dialogue with them about aspects of the human race. And
Not entirely sure why he's picked, though. Do you know why he is?
Do you?
No.
No, it's perhaps a bit of a mystery, but he sort of kind of forms the nucleus of kind of a cult
Right.
of people.
Based around the
Santee?
Yeah. No, based around the woman, the scientist.
Yeah.
Rosalind Child's
Rosalind
character.
Child, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
She's kind of like the cult leader.
And so they believe that it's almost messianic.
Yes.
And they know the aliens are coming to Earth. It's incredible. So they want to facilitate that.
Mm-hmm.
And they will murder and kill, will do whatever is necessary
Yep.
to achieve that goal.
Yep.
Did I mention that Liam Cunningham, the actor from Game of Thrones,
Yes.
plays the head of MI6?
Yes.
They have a vested interest ultimately in defeating this alien threat.
Correct.
But
So they look at Jonathan Pryce's character Evans and Rosalind Child's character as a threat, basically.
yes, they are beginning to deduce that this is a threat. In the process of his conversations with the Santee, Jonathan Pryce's character, Mike Evans, mentions that humans have a process of lying.
Oh, yes.
Of lying.
That's right. That's
And
right.
So the Santee do not lie. And they're, we don't really know this yet, but they are more of a hive mind in their world. And so you can't really keep secrets
Right.
from each other, and therefore why lie? So the idea of lying is, well, first it's a shock to them, and then ultimately it's kind of a game changer for them. That's when they sort of have an epiphany and decide, you know what, we don't want to coexist with these creatures.
Yep.
We should destroy them before we get here.
Yes.
So
And
that
they send a message.
we don't have to cope with them.
Yes.
Um,
And they send a message that freaks everyone out that says, "You are bugs."
right.
And
Now,
it's
before
broadcast
that-
worldwide.
But before that message comes, we are already beginning to realize that they are a threat to us. And so we want to get more intelligence, particularly this head of the MI6 wants to get more intelligence on the Santee so he can know what we're facing off against.
Yes.
And he's got a friend who is a very special scientist. This scientist is Isaac Gonzalez, who plays a scientist who has developed a groundbreaking nanotube technology.
Right.
And the head of the MI6 figures, well, we've got to get the information that Jonathan Pryce's character has got
Right.
away from him so we can know what kind of a threat we're dealing with. This cult is ensconced on a freighter ship. And they know that if they just do a full-out attack to try and get that hard drive from him, that information from him, he'll probably destroy it, and maybe they'll all kill themselves or whatever, but he can't lose the hard drive.
Yeah.
So working with the scientists, they enact this crazy,
It's one of the craziest sequences I've seen on TV.
amazing. For the few of you that haven't seen it, spoiler alert,
Yes.
but the freighter ship is crossing a canal, like the Panama
It's the
Canal.
Panama Canal.
You know. And while it's going through there, they have the good guys enact a plan to stop this ship with his scientist friends' nanotubes.
Yes.
They string these nanotubes. They're invisible. You can't even see
Can't
them.
see them.
They string a whole series of them, you know?
Kind of like a grid, like
Kind of
across
like a
the
grid
thing.
across the canal.
Yes.
And they figure that when the ship comes, it'll stop the ship. But, oh boy, it stops the ship all right.
Well, I think the character who has invented this, played by Isaac Gonzalez, her name's Augie Salazar, and she knows what she's created is destructive. And apparently she has some kind of, either the aliens are keying into this or whatever, but when she created it and it's up and running, she starts seeing this countdown in front of her eyes that nobody else can see but she. And the minute she says, okay, I can't do this anymore, and she shuts it down, the countdown goes away. Well, Wade, basically says, we've got to stop these people, and this is the best way we can do it. So she boots it back up, and sure enough, she gets the countdown again.
Which is crazy. We're going to talk a little bit about how they can monitor what's going on with us. We'll get to that. But anyway, so they want to stop this freighter ship. And so they've strung up these invisible nanotubes. Nobody sees it coming. And then as the ship hits these nanotubes, I mean, it's slice and dice, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ginzu knife, 1995, available only through this television offer. This ship gets sliced and diced. So
everybody,
it's crazy.
And there's children, and there's
as the ship is going through it, there are people on the ship that are seeing the ship shearing apart in front of them. So they start running, but the ship is moving forward. So it's coming through. It's cutting everything. It's cutting people into 10 pieces. I mean,
Do you know what it reminded me of?
What?
Resident Evil, the first one.
Yeah.
Remember when they're in that room or whatever?
Yeah. It's like that. Yeah. People getting cut up. Anyway, Mike, Jonathan Pryce's character, sees this and starts to run. He grabs the hard drive. He starts to run. But alas, he too is caught in this horrible trap.
It is an amazing episode.
They're all toast.
It's called Judgment Day. That was the name of the episode.
The whole ship just collapses in on itself into a mangled mass, this mangled heap. Postscript, they're able to go in and they find the hard drive.
Yep.
So they're able to get more information about this this incredible alien threat. Now, I mentioned that the aliens are able to monitor us.
Right.
They've developed a technology of super-powered protons called sophons. These tiny proton-sized supercomputers that are sent by them, they're also called the trisolarans. They're designed to spy on. They're designed to spy on human activities,
right,
but also to disrupt scientific progress.
Right.
The Santee have decided that if they wipe us out, they may destroy the planet. If they tip us off too much, that we may, if we think that they're too technologically superior, just kill ourselves. It's the Masada effect, like what the Israelis did in Masada. Rather than being captured by the Romans, they just killed themselves. So the Santee don't want that. So the Santee decide, and also the Santee has been monitoring our technological progress. We have been progressing so quickly that they're very worried that in the 400 years that it takes for them at slower than light speed to get to our system, we will evolve technologically so much that we will be beyond them and be able to kill them.
Yeah.
So they decide the best way to deal with us is to inhibit our technological growth.
Right.
So that by the time they arrive, Earth is not destroyed, it's still usable, and that we are not in a position to defeat them technologically. So these sophons are able to, well, first of all, they're crazy. They're extra dimensional. You can take a single proton and turn it into a complex device. They're microscopic and they can record information. They can affect technology, but they're extra dimensional in the sense that they can unfold through extra dimensions into a huge computing surface. And in fact, they unfold out into this thing that covers the sky with that eye kind of looking at, kind of reminded me of Lord of the Rings, Sauron.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And then as you indicated, flashing a message to us, we are bugs.
Yes.
I'm not sure it's the smartest thing to do
well,
is
it
to
does
tell
send
us
panic through the world.
that
So,
we're bugs, but I mean, kind of, gets us thinking that, we have a threat and we have to deal with it. So I'm not sure it was the wisest move on their part, but clearly the Sophon technology is an example of how, even though they're not here yet and they can't travel faster than light, they can still affect us. And this all goes back to the Sophons and quantum technology, which is spooky effect at a distance, as Einstein predicted. In quantum theory, you can affect synchronized objects over great distances without any actual ties to them, or
Right.
spooky effect at a distance.
Right.
So they have mastered some of that technology. So
let me ask you about the end.
Yeah.
Because it is based on these many novels.
the end of this first season?
Yeah, the end of this first season.
Yes, ma'am.
It's based on these novels.
Yeah.
Written by a Chinese scientist, I believe.
Yeah.
And so we decide that...
Louis Jixin.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Wade and company decide that they need to somehow intervene or somehow intercept the fleet before they get here. And so there's one of the scientists, or there's a core group of 5 friends, basically. And this one, his name's Will, I believe is his name.
Yeah.
He is dying of cancer. And he's been in love with Jin, who is connected with the Rosalind Child character. He's been in love with her forever. Anyway, he decides that he's going to allow his brain to be jettisoned into the galaxy to try to intercept this thing. So can you explain this to me?
Well, they send his brain to the fleet because he doesn't necessarily want to stop them from coming.
Right.
MI6 deduces that if it's the brain of somebody that knows that the aliens are a threat and wants to stop them,
right,
that the Santee will destroy the brain as fast as they get it. They'll just destroy it. But if that person was sympathetic to the Santee's cause,
I see,
that they're more likely to accept the brain and perhaps create an interaction with the brain that might open up another channel for communication or for another kind of an end game other than what's already going on. It's a crazy concept.
And it doesn't actually go as planned. So it's kind of gone askew by the end of the first season.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly how. But here's the thing about this show.
Yeah.
Obviously your brain might be going, what is this all about?
My brain is just like that already, just from going through this with you.
He'd be sympathetic with this tea.
Yeah.
But it's also got a lot of heart to it. These 5 friends who, have been bonded forever. Some things happen during the show as well that's not so great, some tragedies, but the majority of them there's a lot of heart and soul to it. And this character, Will, and particularly because he's dying of cancer, it just brings some sensitivity and some emotions to this very, very sci-fi technical show.
Are we talking about the actor that played Samwell in Game of Thrones?
No, that's Jack.
That's Jack.
And there's something that was sad. And then there's this weird
he's assassinated.
Yes, he is.
By that
Tatiana,
girl,
who is this
girl.
She's part of the cult.
Yeah.
But she's like she can bypass video and all this kind of stuff.
Crazy.
So she's really weird. I don't know what her deal is.
Right.
But so I feel like the show itself being very technical and a little hard to understand, but it's one of Game of Thrones, trust me,
has a lot of heart.
Game of Thrones was one of those shows too where you had to stop, and I turned to my husband, I go, who is that again? And by like the 4th episode I was in it.
Well, to conclude, this is a galactic level saga spread out over what could be many seasons. I understand there's a delay, and the second season's been pushed back to 2026.
Right.
But having said that, I think just judging by our enthusiasm as well as a little bit of our confusion, this is a heavy lift. You've got a really good sci-fi. You've got to get in there really deep and really study this thing to understand all the kind of incredible concepts that are being espoused in this. But it's worth the deep dive. It's an incredible piece of work from some amazing filmmakers that we already have known and loved.
Yeah.
And I know we're all going to be looking forward to sometime in 2026, the second season of 3 Body Problem.
I have a good topic. I want to hear about what it was like, you as a kid being a huge comic fan, to finally meet people like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Well, I mean, it starts out really with you and me both being comic book fans. You were into DC Comics.
I was, but you were really the comic guy.
I mean, but time has proven that some of those DC characters were, I think, a lot better than they were given credit for at the time.
Yeah, I think Marvel was more popular when we were growing up. Definitely.
Yeah, for me, it was definitely Marvel, and you remember, I was obsessed. I used to go down to Sweets and Treats,
Yeah, sure.
every week, and the owner would literally hold the comic books that are all wrapped together in steel.
Right.
He'd give me the wire cutters. I'd break it open and I'd grab the comic books that I wanted because they'd be gone like the next day.
Right, by regular people.
You couldn't even get them. So yeah, we had a lot of context. And then when you and I talked about, well, after I went to Phil Sewell's Comic-Con in '69.
That was '69, right?
Yeah, you and I talked about, let's do a convention. And just by coincidence, my dad, the great Mo Malin, was working a half a block from the New Yorker Hotel. Yeah. So we were able to, I don't know how we did, but score that deal, get that space, and ran that show. And so I remember you saying, well, who's going to be our first guest? And my mind immediately goes to the person that the two people I idolized the most were Jim Steranko and Jack Kirby.
But Kirby wasn't there the first time. He came later on, right?
That was a very, very auspicious act of serendipity because of my mom working at Russell Sage High School in Forest Hills with Jack Kirby's sister.
I didn't know this.
For God's sakes, my mom, Sally, comes home one day, the great Sally Malin, comes home to me one day and says, Adam, one of the teachers that I work at school with, this is actually happened, by the way. It sounds too good to be
Why
true.
didn't you ever tell me this?
I thought you knew it.
I didn't know.
She says, Adam, a woman I work at school with, her brother is a comic book artist. And I said, oh, that's nice.
Who is it?
And who is it? She says, oh, well, her name is Rosalind Kirby. I said, no. She says, yeah, the guy is Jack Kirby. So, after I pulled myself off the floor, I couldn't believe it. But through her sister, that's how I met Jack Kirby.
When was that?
That was around 72 or 73, and we had run the first show. Anyway, so I don't know how we got Jim Steranko. We used to go over to Walgreens or whatever.
Yeah, and called.
And we would get on the phone booth. We'd go into the phone booth. Gary and I would squeeze into the phone booth, and then we'd call up, let's say, Meg Wiley from The Wizard of Oz.
No, Meg Wiley was Star Trek.
Or Meg
Margaret Hamilton.
Margaret Hamilton.
We got turned down by her.
Or Gene Roddenberry,
which you did get on the phone.
And
but I'm interested in, like, Stanley and Jack Kirby were always fighting during those years. But you were talking to both of them, and then we had them at the same show a lot.
Yeah, I don't think that we were necessarily putting them together. But, after getting Kirby, which was so remarkable for me.
Was Kirby first as the guest? Do you remember?
Jim Steranko was the first.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But between Kirby and
Stan was next.
That's what I thought.
And Stan was an incredible guy to work with. Paying Stan was a lot of fun.
Yeah, tell people how you used to pay him.
Well, Stan got a fee of $2,000 in those days. So I go to Gary, I say, give me $2,000. Because Stan wants it in cash.
Right.
So Gary gives me $2,000, and Stan says, Adam, you need to meet me down on 33rd Street in my Volkswagen station wagon. You'll be parked at 33rd and 7th, okay? You come down. I'll be sitting in the driver's seat. You come and sit in the passenger seat, and I want that money in an unmarked brown paper bag, and I need you to just pass it underneath the dashboard to me.
Why?
I don't know. It's like spy stuff.
I know.
Anyway,
like a drug deal.
Go down. But by the way, getting a parking spot on 33rd and 7th is an impossibility today. But and weirdly enough, at that same corner, right across the street was Sports Plaza, where we had our office.
Our first office.
Yeah, in '78,
that was cool.
I think. I believe so.
Yeah,
so I graduated
78, and I graduated in 77.
I had to go down and pay Stan in cash. But he was great. He was all of the bravado,
But what about the talent?
What do you mean?
Bravado with talent or bravado without talent?
Stan was a great writer, no less than the great Sally Malin said that he was a great writer. My mom was an English teacher. She was very discriminating. And remember what she said. She said, because everybody else was throwing out, everybody else's moms were throwing out their comic books. And Sally Malin said,
no, you keep on reading those Marvel comics. They're the gateway to great literature, and besides which, Stan is a great writer.
Yeah, she was ahead of her time. You know that.
So we got that endorsement.
So Marvel's success is based on the combination of those two, Kirby and Stan Lee.
I would definitely say so. There was an amazing. They catalyzed each other. I think that Kirby was the idea guy. He came up with the concepts because the way the system worked would be, well, I mean, Stan might have sort of the rough idea, come up with some super villain to fight the Fantastic Four in this issue.
So he would tell Kirby to do that.
He'd say to Kirby, come up with the super villain of the.
So why isn't Kirby the one that gets credit?
Well, it's a terrible injustice of history that Kirby has been undervalued by, not today, because I think it's more generally accepted that Kirby was the concept and the idea guy. Not to take away from Stan, but then, Stan says, come in with a supervillain. So Jack Kirby creates the Silver Surfer and Galactus. I mean, these mythical characters, right? And then he does the breakdown of the story, too. Kirby figures out, well, Fantastic Four meets...
he does the layout.
Ben Grimm fights the Silver Surfer. Galactus comes to Earth. Johnny Storm has to go find the Ultimate Nullifier, and they scare Galactus off, and that's the end of it.
So what did Stan Lee do for that?
Kirby would hand the pages to Lee,
right,
and he'd say, there you go, and here's the broad strokes of how the story is unfolding, and you can see it looking at the pictures. Do it. And then Stan would write the whole saga.
Oh, he would write, and then someone would ink in the dialogue.
Yeah, like Marie
Severin. She was a colorist.
Sam Rosen, I think, was the letterer.
Yeah,
and you'd also have Joe Sinnott inking Kirby's work.
Sinnott. We worked with him a lot.
We worked with a lot of those guys. But
so who of all of those comic book people do you feel are like top of the line creative geniuses? Because we worked with all of them.
Well, there were different eras. In our eras, definitely Lee and Kirby and Steranko. But there were
Steranko was the only one you're putting in with them?
No, there were a lot of greats.
Like what about John Buscema and those kind of people?
Yeah, I think he was great. I don't think he was quite on that level. John Romita Sr. was a great artist and technician, but I don't think on quite that level. Honestly, I think John Romita Jr., his son, was an equal or greater talent to John Sr. John Romita Jr. was an amazing talent. But we sort of had a young Turks generation. They were young then. They're old now.
Yeah, I know. You told
me. But
I was going to ask you about those people like Frank Miller.
Frank Miller, I mean, amazing. John Byrne. There were some incredible creative talents. And then the next generation that kind of passed us when we were already sort of moving out of that area, guys like Rob Liefeld, who created, Deadpool. There's a whole thing going on with Rob Liefeld and Deadpool right now. But I mean, these characters that these guys created, they're multi-billion-dollar properties now. If only Jack could have lived. Sadly,
did Jack miss all of the Marvel movies? He was gone before even the first ones?
He was gone, and his estate never got to, I know they tried, they litigated, they never got any kind of ownership in that IP.
Because all of that work was done for hire back then.
It was work for hire, but somehow or another, Stan managed to wrangle a little bit of ownership.
I don't know about that. I think they just paid him a lot of money per year. I don't think he ever got ownership either.
Well, I mean, it's...
But his name was all over everything. Stan Lee Presents, and it was never Jack Kirby.
Clearly, the people, the creators who fought for creator ownership were prescient in the sense that these properties would end up being worth billions of dollars, and that they created them. They should have had some skin in the game, which the first generation certainly did.
Right.
I mean, Wally Wood, who was one of the most brilliant artists of the 50s, the EC comics of the great Bill Gaines, Mad Magazine. Wally Wood came to one of our early shows.
I remember he was drunk, right?
He was penniless. He was a homeless person. He was homeless.
And back then it meant something to be homeless.
He was homeless. And I remember him coming to our convention and just sitting on the side of the room crying.
Crying?
Yeah, and then Vaughn Baudet, who's long since gone, came to comfort him, and that was such a sad sight to see. But the incredible comic creators of that era, not only were they work for hire, not only was their IP essentially strip mined from them, but many of them ended up penniless and destitute, which was such a sad.
So is that the category like Al Williamson and Roy Krenkel and those guys?
Some of those guys eked out a living, and some of them did that by working in other media, like
newspaper strips.
Yes, sir.
Like Williamson, right?
Yeah. And Krenkel too.
And Krenkel
too,
a bit too, yeah.
Or doing book covers, things like that. But it was a tough business. I mean, even Frank Frazetta, really in his life, never really.
No, never achieved what happened
I've
after.
just got to, the story, but we had the great Frank Frazetta at our show a few times.
A few times. Yeah.
Matter of fact, Doug Murray brought an interview with Frazetta to our fanzine
I remember
Infinity.
that, yeah.
And then at one of our shows, Frazetta passed me a note saying, "Please, can I have a copy?" Signed Frank Frazetta with that fabulous signature.
Yeah, we have that.
Anyway, so Frazetta, remember, rents out a hotel room. And so I hear that Frazetta's got a hotel room at our show, and he's got his paintings for sale.
Yeah, I went up there.
Oh, you went there?
Oh, yeah.
So you go in the room, there's 2 twin beds.
Right.
All the Frazetta Conan paintings.
Yeah.
I mean, the Frazetta paintings are out on
Right.
the bed, $500 a pop.
No, he wasn't selling them.
500. Yes, he was. 500.
Are you
bucks a
sure
pop.
about?
I am sure.
I thought he never wanted to.
That's
His
afterwards.
wife wouldn't let him sell anything.
Not in that day. They were selling in that day.
And
They
you
were
bought
selling.
how many?
0.
Me too.
No,
That didn't work. So 0 times $4 million is how much?
Put it this way: there was probably $200 million worth
Yeah,
of
now.
paintings on those stupid beds in the Statler Hill.
Oh, I just love William Shatner. He's the best.
What a fantastic show.
Yeah, it was really great.
Good stuff. I loved hearing about Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. I mean, the stuff they talk about, I find myself just kind of like leaning in,
Yes.
and
So much
was-
experience they've had. Oh my gosh.
it's
So
like
much.
a history lesson.
Mm.
Okay. Are you ready for this one?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Oh, good.
I'm very eagerly anticipating. What is it?
Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg, you know him. He's working on Mission Impossible. You know him, of course, from Shaun of the Dead. He's Scotty in the Kelvin movies, Star Trek movies, 2009, Into Darkness, and beyond. We're super excited to have Simon Pegg joining us at Trek to Las Vegas, STLV 2025, August 6th through 10th. He won't be there all those days, but he'll be there. And we cannot wait to see you there. But it's going to be so awesome to see him.
I know, I
That
can't
line's
wait.
going to be so enthused, I think.
Yes, I can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
So join us for our next podcast, and definitely set your coordinates for
Ooh.
August 6th through 10th
Very Trekky.
at Las Vegas.
We'll see you next time on the Creation Entertainment Podcast.